Hey everyone, Oilers lost the Stanley Cup final again. So I'm going to go over Oilers' next moves. I do want to preface and just start with saying that Trent Frederick is likely going to sign an 8-year deal. We don't know the AAV as I'm recording this. I didn't include it in here because I'm thinking it's going to be a low cap hit. It's probably just going to match what I was using here for fourth liners. To me, Trent Frederick is a third or fourth liner. He's not a top six factor. He did not have good production in the playoffs. He doesn't have good production in his playoff career. So Trent Frederick, it seems like he's going to be back in Edmonton. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. So when I'm going over these rosters and they don't see Trent Frederick, I didn't really utilize or focus on the depth signings. Trent Frederick is going to be back though. Just want to focus on that. And then talking about the big moves the Oilers can make this offseason after losing in the Stanley Cup final again. So let's go through the Oilers' next moves. So let's look at Edmonton Oilers' next moves and what they could do after losing the Stanley Cup final once again. So they've lost now back-to-back Stanley Cup finals. What can they do? It's a bit of a goaltending conversation, but there's maybe other moves. And there's going to be some crazy stuff out there, right? Like Connor McDavid is not going to get traded, but does he leave in free agency next summer? I don't think so, but I think there's going to be the conversations there. We're talking about it though. I think that's the big thing. We're talking about it. It's not a non-conversation. I just think he needs to win a cup with Edmonton. I think if he leaves without the cup, the legacy's tarnished a little bit. But maybe some big moves like this. So John Gibson from the Anaheim Ducks has been a big point of conversation. I think something like this might make some sense. I wonder if they opt to trade Stuart Skinner over Calvin Pickard. That would be the interesting one for me. But if I look at teams and fit, this could make some sense. The Anaheim Ducks get a younger player, draft pick, makes some sense. Maybe you build that defense group again, and then maybe you get a guy like Rickard Rakell. I've heard Raquel could be available for the right price, but I heard that price is pretty expensive. So we just looked at that one. If you can't beat them, sign their UFAs. Are they going to try to sign some guys? Aaron Ekblad, maybe? So they're not going to get Bennett, but Ekblad could make some sense. The one thing that I'll say that's interesting just in the back of my head is Bennett and McDavid played together when they were younger. So that's another factor to consider. But Ekblad, that would definitely look a lot better in terms of their defense group. Getting a guy like Jake Allen's also interesting. But Ekblad with Wallman, Ekholm, and Bouchard, that's a lot better of a top four. I wonder if those mistakes in the blunders in Game 6 cost Bouchard a little bit of money. There was rumors he could make up to $11 million per year. Maybe that's down to closer to 10. So I could see it maybe being closer to this number, but I still think it's going to be over 10 if I had to make a prediction. Trying this out. Let's see. So I see the trade here's with Boston. Evander Kane to the Bruins. I mean, he would definitely fit that Bruin type hockey. But one thing that I've heard out there is the Edmonton Oilers looking at Jeremy Swayman. But do the Bruins even consider that? He had a down year, so the value's not as high. But Jeremy Swayman, Elvis Merzlikins, John Gibson, a lot of names out there. This person has Joey Decord maybe as a target for the Oilers. He had a great year. He just signed a long-term deal. This would be a decent return for the Kraken. I like Sam O'Reilly as a piece. That would be intriguing to Seattle. But I don't know if this one's as realistic. Surgery. Oh my goodness. Talk about a blockbuster. So I don't think this is realistic either. But Noah Dobson as a target for the Edmonton Oilers is really interesting if Bouchard went the other way. Oh my goodness. Imagine a blockbuster where Bouchard goes to the Islanders and Dobson goes to the Oilers. Interesting. The other one I wanted to throw out there, and this is getting very, very hot take-ish, but could the Buffalo Sabres and Edmonton Oilers make a trade? I had it in my notes, but I think something like this. So if you're the Edmonton Oilers, you're going into next offseason, what could you do? Well, if it's a big if Bouchard is asking for too much and you're worried he could get offer sheeted, because let's not ignore the elephant in the room here. Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg were RFAs last offseason and the Blues offer sheeted both of them, and the Oilers opted not to match. So if we look at the Bouchard situation, he could get close to $11 million. So let's see if a team like Buffalo makes some sense, because at the end of the day, They need a right shot defenseman. They need guys on the right side. So could Edmonton, like, I'm not saying it's realistic to trade Bouchard. And just like I've said it, I don't think it's realistic that McDavid or any of those guys are going anywhere. But what I will say is I wonder if they're going to make major shakeups or if they're just going to trim around the perimeter. I think a guy like Evander Kane very well could get moved. He's not going to get moved in this deal. But let's do a little bit of a mock trade here. So I think if it's Bouchard going to Buffalo, maybe it becomes bigger. And I wonder if you could really intrigue Buffalo because Bouchard's that right shot, because he's the right fit. Could you maybe include some draft capital, include a prospect like Sam O'Reilly? Things like this to get their interest up. Maybe a couple draft selections into the future. Second and third, another third, Bouchard. Could you convince Buffalo to trade Byram and Peterka? Like I said, Peterka's got a lot of value. I'm not saying it's going to work exactly this way, but Bouchard's been a playoff performer. He's a right shot defenseman. He's a bit of a rare breed. If you put Bouchard next to Owen Power, that could be quite the pair. That could be a really, really good pair. Of course, the battle in my head is going, oh my God, Bouchard, Power, and Dalian all battling for power play time. I don't know if Power necessarily needs the power play time, but if he does, maybe you have Dalian and Bouchard on that top unit. Bouchard more as the shooter, Dalian more as the facilitator at the back end. Then you have like Tage, Tuck, down low with pick your poison on the other guy. And then the second unit's run by Power. I could see something like that. But I think if the Oilers could do something like this, then maybe find a partner to dump some of these guys. Maybe it's a team like Boston that wants more depth and frankly wants to still compete because maybe they want to still build around Pasternak and build around McAvoy and build around those guys. So maybe it is going after Swayman. So let's go after the Swayman scenario. And again, is it ideal that the Bruins are giving up their number one guy? No, but maybe the Bruins are like, okay, Stuart Skinner out of that Edmonton market, maybe it would work out. And then maybe Evander Kane could also be a good piece. Maybe put Savoy in there. Again, the money basically matches up. And then maybe Edmonton just brings back a couple depth pieces here. Like a Patrick Brown. A 2 for 4. Again, it's the offseason. They have some more roster spots. So something like this. And the Oilers have cap space here to sign Byram and Peterka. So again, maybe not the most realistic scenario, but I could see the Oilers making 2 big trades like that. And in this scenario, it's with Buffalo and Boston. So let's slide those guys down. Let's see. You probably want the cheap options here on the fourth line. So your Venti or like Hamlin on that fourth line. Because then you're really battling for space. Swayman. So you're at about $15 million of cap space. So you do have room. You have room, but you're probably going to have to send some guys down. So Ty Emberson, does he get sent down to create some space? Maybe. So you're probably carrying about an extra $200K. Yeah, that's going to be $200K that's buried. But you're up to 16.9. That's basically to sign 3 forwards and a defense. So if you go to the RFAs, Peterka, I'm going to say $8 million per year, long term. And then Byram, maybe like 7.5 or 7. Maybe a 7 times 7 will do. Hey, you gotta fit it in. It's for a championship window. So maybe Ekholm, Wallman, Nurse slides down to Setcher, and then Byram and Kulak maybe. Or maybe Byram, Wallman, Ekholm, Kulak, something like that. I mean, that's a pretty good defense group. And then Peterka, the German duo, the German connection, Peterka and Draisaitl. And then I actually thought of something else interesting. Like maybe I saw that Connor Murphy trade. Maybe you do something like that. Could you trade with Chicago? That's an interesting one. I don't know if Chicago even likes that potential, but I mean, Reichel is another German on Chicago. That could be a target for Edmonton, but we'll leave it like that for now. We'll just keep it simple and call up guys within, just for the sake of the cap picture. So back to the forward group here. Patrick Brown could get called up. So let's see here. So Janmark probably on that third line. And then you need to sign one more top six guy. And then, so for just argument's sake for now, we'll just do fourth line. That fourth line definitely needs to improve. But for the time being, it's basically matching the cap hits of what they would sign in free agency anyways. The defense group's a lot better. You have 1.1 to basically sign a cheap veteran. They could bring back Corey Perry and try to go one more time. But I don't know. I think Perry, like, that's a tough one, right? Like, does he even want to come back after losing 2 in a row? So just to look at right wingers, just to look at options here. There's probably some cheap options, but I wonder if you just bring back Connor Brown. Connor Brown likes it there. He didn't put up any crazy production, so I think at the end of the day, he'd probably come pretty cheap. He only put up 13 goals. So he is 31, and they have, 1.1? So maybe Brown or Perry come back for that number. So we'll say maybe just a 1-year deal. Again, I could see maybe them bringing like a Brandon Saad as well. But if Connor Brown gets offered a contract bigger than that, he might take it. But something like this could make some sense. They also, if they wanted to spread the wealth a little bit here, Podkolzin did have his moments. So maybe it's like Podkolzin with Draisaitl and Peterka. Then you slide Hyman across. You have Hyman, Brown, and McDavid. The familiarity there. 2 former Leafs and the former teammates with McDavid and Jr. as well with Brown and McDavid. And then your third line of Nuge, Henrique, and Janmark. A little bit more of that third line scoring. Something like this could make a lot of sense for the Oilers in terms of rebounding and next moves. Again, is it overall realistic? Maybe not. Maybe that Bruins trade doesn't happen. So maybe that Bruins trade gets nixed here for a second. Let's do that. And you're 2.6 over the cap. So maybe let's cancel that Connor Brown signing. Arvidsson maybe stays, or you do the Anaheim deal. So maybe Arvidsson with the competitive trades and moves Anaheim's making, maybe Arvidsson would be willing to go to Anaheim. Then you do Stuart Skinner and a draft pick for John Gibson. No funny business. And I think that would be cap compliant. I think it'll be close. Let's see. Yeah, they're like 1.3 over. And that's where maybe you just trade Evander Kane somewhere. And maybe to Boston actually makes some sense for Evander Kane, but it's just not for the goalie. So maybe Evander Kane goes to Boston. So, yeah, the Evander Kane one would be definitely an interesting conversation where he would waive, where he'd be even willing to go. I'm not too sure. I know there was like the conversations with the Canucks before. I don't know if the Canucks would even be willing to take a guy like that, but say it's something like this, Dakota Joshua and maybe Höglander or like Garland. Evander Kane swaps in. Could be something like that. Maybe Höglander stays. Maybe Teddy Bluger's there as well as an option. Drew O'Connor's there as well. Maybe that's the swap. I mean, Evander Kane would provide better offense for the Canucks. Maybe it's something like that. And then maybe like a depth piece. Like Linus Karlsson. What kind of production did he put up? Not much. Maybe that's like the kind of piece that makes sense. And then Kane going to to Vancouver. I mean, something like that could work. There you go. Dakota Joshua. And then again, just to fill that fourth line. The fourth line probably doesn't look that way, but Dakota Joshua, Henrique Janmark, Peterka, Draisaitl, Podkolzin, Hyman, McDavid, Nuge, and then John Gibson as the starting goalie with a much better defense group. So 3 trades, 1 with Buffalo, 1 with Anaheim, 1 with Vancouver, maybe. I think that's fairly realistic. And if not, then you cancel those 2 trades and you keep Evander Kane. But I think they might move on from Evander Kane, so we'll see. But I think that could be interesting. But say you do keep Bouchard, because there's been rumors that they're just going to keep Bouchard. You'd have $14 million of cap space. You sign Bouchard to that rumor deal, which, again, I think is way too much. But say we do it. Say if it's not 11, it's 10. Long term. So Bouchard goes in there. Then your forward group, you have about 4.2 of space. And we'll look back at the right wing market here. Let's see. There's a few guys you could probably pay around that and get a decent number. Maybe it's like a Roslovic. I mean, he had a 22-goal season. So maybe it's a long-term deal for Roslovic. Give him the term. And you get Roslovic at like 3.5, which would be reasonable. And you got a bit of flexibility. You got about 787 for one more depth signing. And Roslovic joins Draisaitl on that second line. It's not much better, folks. It's not much better. But you do solve the goaltending situation. And Roslovic was a 22-goal scorer, so you get him at a decent price with the cap going up. But if I was making the call, I would definitely revert to that Buffalo trade and move on from Bouchard if you could. If Bouchard had a lot of value with another team like a Buffalo Sabres. But things like that, I think you definitely need to consider if you're Edmonton, because Bouchard and Darnell Nurse commanding $20 million combined would be insanity, in my opinion.